PlayStation has no games is a phrase you've probably heard in gaming discussions. More specifically, the idea that the PS5 has no games to show after all these years since its release. This isn't a new phenomenon either, as the phrase actually began in the PS3 era due to the severe lack of games on the console at the time, which makes this modern remake of the joke even more ironic. Anyways, when people first started echoing this for the PS5 generation, I was skeptical. I mean, we got 2 new Spider-Man games, Demon's Souls, AstroBot, and a handful of other solid titles in recent years. But I eventually came to realize that as time went on, I've used the console less and less. Friends of mine who own the console feel the exact same way now too. I mean, the PS5 has been out for half a decade, and all the heavy-hitting exclusives feel like they're becoming less and less common, while the ones that actually are exclusive to the console end up coming to PC later on anyway. That is, if it's not just a simultaneous launch on both like what they've been doing recently. As of right now, this list compiles all of the current PS5 exclusive titles, aka the ones that haven't been or won't be put on PC. Some of these are out, and some haven't been released yet, like Wolverine, Ghost of Yotei, or Death Stranding 2. Besides those major titles though, none of these particularly stand out to me or ring a bell. There's obviously Demon's Souls from 2020, and I remember Destruction All-Stars before it completely died. The free Silent Hill game was very much a throwaway title. There's Intergalactic, Naughty Dog's next game, which at earliest isn't coming out till 2027. Researching this subject made me wonder, has the PS5 really become disappointing with its exclusives? I mean, there's been amazing games released to the console, even if some were only temporarily exclusive. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the Silent Hill 2 remake, and AstroBot were some of my favorite games from last year, and although I didn't fully connect with it when I played, Stellar Blade reviewed and performed really well. Other exclusives like God of War Ragnarok were great, but it was also on PS4, and Spider-Man 2 was pretty solid, besides the admittedly rushed story elements and this sad excuse for a costume.
That shit's ass, bro.
Point is, they're undoubtedly great games on the console, but I felt like Sony could be doing a lot more with their many IPs and studios. I needed to dig deeper to understand why I felt this way and if it actually held any weight. I came to find that beneath it all, there are actual reasons for these feelings of missed potential. Just hear me out. Okay. Everyone has noticed it by now, but live service games have been a plague to gaming for years now, and every publisher has tried to create their own multiplayer money printing machine for their catalog. Time and time again though, we've seen studios shoot and completely miss with their attempts at these games. Just to name a few, there's Lawbreakers, Anthem, Marvel's Avengers, Word I Won't Say Squad, Babylon's Fall, The Day Before, and many more that most probably didn't even know existed. There's a seemingly endless list of multi-million-dollar failures that have shown just how stupid and, more importantly, not profitable it is to chase trends instead of just trying to make good games. However, this is an industry problem, not just a PlayStation problem. There is one game from last year that perfectly demonstrates the point I'm trying to make here though. This title is rumored to have cost at least $400 million to make, if not more, and was in development for 8 years. It was a paid hero shooter imitating Overwatch with some of the worst character designs gaming has seen in years. And it's probably not shocking to hear that it was completely dead on arrival once it finally came out. I'm of course talking about the legendary live service failure commonly referred to as Concord. This game wasn't the typical live service failure though. It was a total embarrassment for every party involved, but mostly for the company that funded it. This game had hundreds of millions sunk into it and couldn't even reach a peak of 700 concurrent players on Steam. And although its main player base was likely on console, I can't imagine the numbers on there being any more impressive. 8 years and millions of dollars later, and Concord shut down in 2 weeks, with the studio behind the game unfortunately being closed soon after. Now, guess who spent all these resources funding this project just for it to be a complete waste in the end? That would be Sony Interactive Entertainment, aka PlayStation. I bring up Concord because I see it as a prime example of one of the faults with this console generation. Sony has spent so many resources funding live service games that proved to be a complete waste of time in the end. We can see this pattern echoed with all the cancelled games we now know about, like The Great Web, which was a multiplayer Spider-Man game by Insomniac, or the cancelled multiplayer Last of Us game by Naughty Dog. There were also God of War and Twisted Metal live service games that, just like the others, were cancelled. Some of these could have been a lot of fun, or they might have been awful, but either way, they were cancelled. And these games will never see proper releases after so many developers put their time into it. PlayStation has seen success with live service games, like with Helldivers 2, but all in all, live service games have clearly impacted the current generation for the worse. And because game development takes so long nowadays, and it's only getting longer, by the time Sony and these studios realized these games weren't as profitable as they thought, it was already too late. And by that point, they're only left with two options. Either release the game and possibly embarrass themselves like with Concord, or cancel it altogether because they know they can't properly support it and get the return on their investment. It's a shame so many people spent all this time creating a product that no one will be able to enjoy, and it's also clear that Sony placed an emphasis on their studios making these types of titles rather than the single player ones they built their reputation on. Speaking of single player games though, have you ever played The Last of Us? Well, what about The Last of Us Remastered, a graphical update for the PS4 version? Well, did you ever get a chance to play the sequel, The Last of Us 2? Now, stay with me. But did you ever buy The Last of Us Part 1, a graphical overhaul to the first game? Did you buy that? Well, honestly, you have to play The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered as well. And if you liked them all, it would be a disservice not to buy The Last of Us Complete Collector's Edition. Do we really need this many re-releases? I'm a fan of these two games, yes, 2 games, and I can see how ridiculous this has all become. This is another major cause of the PlayStation has no games debate. Their studios keep re-releasing the same games over and over again. Did Horizon Zero Dawn, a 2017 game, really need a remastered edition? Can one of the 8 Horizon fans out there tell me if it was worth it in the comments? That was a joke, but seriously, I don't know a single person who has played these games in real life. I'm sure they're fun, and I know the series has a large fan base, but I would genuinely like to hear from you all who have actually played them. Was this remaster actually worth it? Either way, it feels like a lot of the games that come out of PlayStation are remakes or remasters. Some of them are admittedly great, and re-releasing a game isn't a bad thing by any means. It's just when games that came out only a few years ago are being remastered, it ends up just feeling redundant. Even with the issues I find with this generation, it would be disingenuous to ignore the many successes and the amazing games that the PS5 has had. As I mentioned before, last year alone saw some truly stellar games released for the platform, whether they were solely on PS5 or on PC too. They still serve as wins for PlayStation and Sony Interactive. And when comparing the exclusives of the first 5 years of the PS4 versus the PS5, they really aren't all that different in terms of heavy-hitting games. So taking that into consideration, is the PlayStation has no games debate really valid? Opinions will obviously vary, but honestly, I'm gonna say no. I think that the console has definitely had its blunders and pitfalls, but at the same time, they have created a lot of great exclusives for the PS5, even though PC gets them all now too. With those PC releases though, it does present less of a reason to actually stay on the console when you simply don't need to anymore if you own a decent PC. With all of the IPs Sony owns though, it would be nice to see them capitalized on more. They have a ton of studios under their belt that I'm sure are all working on things, but it would be great to see their old franchises be brought back, like a new Ape Escape game, a Little Big Planet revival instead of them taking it out back and replacing it with AstroBot, a proper Bloodborne re-release for PS5, a new Killzone game, maybe more Marvel games. There's a lot of opportunities that could be taken advantage of, but instead, we got Concord. I guess when your main competitor is Xbox and you're cooking them this bad, it doesn't really matter that much anyway, but I would just really like to have more reasons to go on my PS5 instead of letting it collect dust in the corner. If you have a PS5 and have felt the same way recently, let me know your thoughts on the debate. Or, if you still find new games to play exclusive to the PS5, then I want to know what you've been playing recently. Regardless, thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to me ramble about this. I hope you enjoyed it, and there's more content on the way soon, so subscribe. Amidst all that though, bye for now.